Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We are joined with, first of all, my name is Amanda Connolly with Global News. I'll be the moderator for today. We are joined by Canada's Taxpayers ombudsperson, François Boileau. Today, Mr. Boileau will be releasing his annual report. I believe he has some opening statements. Monsieur Boileau, à vous.
Good morning. Bonjour. C'est avec un immense plaisir et une très grande fierté que je vous présente aujourd'hui mon tout premier rapport annuel comme ombudsman des contribuables. It is with great pride and an immense honor that I present to you my very first annual report as Canada's Taxpayers ombudsperson. In a year that was unlike any other, it is not surprising that Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, had to transform itself and adapt to the new reality that all Canadians were facing. As part of its journey to transform its program and services to better meet the needs and expectations of Canadians, it is clear that the CRA has adopted its people-first approach. This includes an increased focus on the Taxpayer Bill of Rights to ensure that Canadians are treated accordingly when dealing with the CRA. We believe that this approach puts the CRA on the right track to better serve Canadians, and we encourage it to continue to do so. Bien que la pandémie ait changé notre façon de fonctionner, nous sommes demeurés opérationnels et prêts à aider les Canadiens. J'ai assumé mon rôle d'ombudsman des contribuables au milieu d'une pandémie mondiale, alors que l'Agence de revenus du Canada, l'ARC, offrait des prestations d'urgence essentielles aux Canadiens et Canadiennes et que notre bureau subissait d'énormes pressions pour aider les personnes aux prises avec des difficultés financières. Nous avons su nous adapter et livrer en questionnant constamment nos processus afin d'améliorer l'efficacité du service que nous offrons aux Canadiens et Canadiennes. Je ne pourrais pas être plus fier de cette équipe. We adapted and delivered by constantly challenging our processes to improve the efficiency of the service we provide to Canadians. I couldn't be more proud of this team. The new working environment has led us to research technologies and methods that can simplify some of our processes and to invest in them. For example, we have gone digital as well as paperless, while still looking for more modern ways of communicating with our clients that are both more modern, but also totally secure, while reducing the time to respond to them as access to our office was limited. As the CRA has been instrumental in providing emergency benefits to many Canadians, this has resulted in our office receiving a greater volume of inquiries and complaints. Bien qu'il soit évident que la rapidité de restructuration des ressources de l'ARC lui a permis de s'assurer que tous les Canadiens ont été rapidement appuyés après la mise en place de nombreuses restrictions liées à la pandémie, ces restrictions ont causé des difficultés financières à de nombreuses personnes. Le lancement rapide de la prestation canadienne d'urgence par l'ARC a offert un allègement des millions de personnes. Il s'agissait d'un changement radical, mais temporaire, pour l'ARC, dont la priorité est passée de la perception de l'impôt à la répartition des prestations d'urgence. Ce changement lui a permis de distribuer des milliers de dollars aux Canadiens et Canadiennes dans le besoin, et ce, en très peu de temps. Cela a été reconnu non seulement par les Canadiens et Canadiennes avec qui nous avons parlé, mais aussi par les organismes que nous avons rencontrés. That said, in 2020-2021, our operational readiness has allowed us to handle a record number of inquiries, complaints, appeals, and referrals to the CRA Service Feedback for Review. Our office received a total of 3,533 complaints, an increase over 134%. Our office responded to 183% more calls than in 2019-2020, meaning 410 calls. Our office has sent 132% more urgent requests to be processed by the CRA than the year before, an amount of 760. While I acknowledge that the CRA has delivered COVID-19 related benefits in record time, we found that the CRA did not always provide clear, accurate, and timely information to Canadians when they needed it most. That's why in February 2021, I began a review of the CRA's communication to taxpayers regarding the CRA My Account lockout conducted in mid-February 2021. Many affected taxpayers have expressed concern about the clarity of information they receive from the CRA. As a result, we are currently reviewing the actions taken by the CRA and how they provided affected taxpayers with information, the goal being to ensure that the CRA provides the best possible information so that Canadians can make informed decisions. This annual report outlines key achievements, identified issues related to the CRA services, and describes the service issues, complaints trends. In addition, the report includes 5 recommendations to the Minister of National Revenue and the Chair of the Board of Management to improve service to Canadians. Ces recommandations peuvent parfois sembler simples et relever du gros bon sens. C'est voulu. Elles ont pas mal un point en commun. C'est l'amélioration des communications par l'ARC, sous toutes ses formes. Mieux les Canadiens seront informés de leurs droits, de leurs recours, des possibilités de dépôt électronique, de pouvoir parler à un agent ou une agente à une heure déterminée, plus l'ARC servira efficacement davantage les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Many of the complaints we received were also related to the CRA's administration of COVID-19 benefits, the majority of which came from individuals experiencing financial hardship. The main category of complaint trends over the past year are, obviously, COVID-19 benefits. Canadians often express frustrations with delays caused by many factors, including eligibility verification, CRA account, the lack of clear information provided when the CRA disabled online access to my account for over 180,000 users in February 2021. Contact centers. Canadians are often faced with long wait times, premature disconnection, or are told that lines are full, making it difficult to reach the CRA to explain the problems they may be facing. Income tax and benefit returns and adjustment process. There are delays in CRA processing of income tax and benefit returns and requests for adjustments. And also the CCB, the Canada Child Benefit Program. Alors voilà, merci de votre écoute. Je suis à votre disposition pour répondre à toutes vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Merci.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. I believe we do not have questions in the room at the moment, so we will go directly to questions on the telephone. Operator, do we have any questions?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. The first question is from, la première question est de Chris Nardi, National Post. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Bonjour, M. Boileau. Merci beaucoup, premièrement, pour votre conférence de presse. I have a question, first of all, on something, and admittedly, I did a very cursory read. I think your report just came out, but about, you mentioned how there's a callback function for Canadians who are under collections. But obviously, access to the call center for the average human being, and admittedly I was one of them earlier this year because of that lockout, is very difficult. And so you highlighted in the report as seemingly a difference between people who owe money versus who are owed money by CRA. Is that remain a systemic issue within the CRA, just different levels of treatment depending on what kind of interaction you're having with CRA and just like an inequity on that end?
I believe that we've came a long way in building relationship with CRA, but the fact of the matter is that the lack of communication, clear, timely, and accurate communication, often create difficulties with clients. They want to enlist in a program benefit, but are they aware of the criteria and the consequences? I've took notice of the economic statement this week, which address the GIS issue, for instance. That's something that we've seen as perhaps a lack of clear communication as well. So in all the complaints that we receive, in all the trends, we pretty much see that there are some difficulties in communication. So this is why we've came up with a recommendation. Many recommendations. Well, first of all, that they would know us a little bit better, and they would that clients or Canadians would know about the process to make a complaint, also within CRA, but to have the readily available and clear information. When they call at first year, or even before they call, if the information is already accessible online, that summarize what they think might solve their issue, instead of calling the CRA line, instead of waiting so much time in queue. Or having another recommendation that we ask simply, and I know this is quite complex as a request or as a recommendations to implement, but it's possible in the private sector that people can have a callback feature. So why not have that as well? This is something modern, and I believe that Canadians ought to receive that kind of treatment. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, close enough. What I was wondering, though, more specifically, is you mentioned that the callback feature does exist, but only for people who basically owe money to CRA, right? At that point, and you seem to be saying in the report that if you owe money to CRA, once again, they'll treat you. On vous traiter aux petits oignons, essentiellement. But for if you're just calling information, is that a kind of an inequity that you notice in this particular circumstance? But is it something that just keeps on happening in just the general service provision of CRA? They're much faster to respond to people who either owe them money than people who are just trying to figure anything else out. Really, just contact them. Period.
Well, quite frankly, it's almost a culture shift for CRA. They're more used of going about recollection than giving out funding, and that's why it was kind of a crash course. Within a few weeks, even a few days, they had to give out money. It was something new for CRA to implement back in March 2019, 2020. 2020. It's been so long that we've been in this pandemic. So it has been done perhaps very, very fast. Did they had all the right criteria? Was it clear online? Was there any mistakes? Yes, there were. So in a way, it was a culture shift. Are we still within this culture shift? I believe we've seen it with the vast majority of complaints that we've received over the last year. We've experienced many Canadians experience difficulties in when they applied for benefit programs and to reach out to someone. So your question is fair at that point. It's something that CRA needs to work on.
Operator, can we have the next question?
Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Chris Nardi, National Post. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Hello. Another question I had, you mentioned, so CRA call agents had access to information that was unclassified about applying for COVID benefits that CRA had not disclosed publicly. And you say that was obviously problematic because the only people who called in would have access to that information if they spoke to an agent. Can you give us examples of what that information was? What kind of information are we talking about?
Well, it's about information in regards to the program and the criteria that are being available, and if you have difficulties in making assumptions about your own T1 and you're making much, you're making a little bit more than the criteria, but is it gross or is it net or is it those kinds of details would be interesting if when you do call, well, before you call CRA, if it's readily accessible, then you'll find the right tools to answer your own questions before calling in. Because we found that often people at first year, so this is when you call the general inquiry lines of CRA, you have first-year agents, and they're not necessarily the subject matter experts that will deal with your issue if it's more specific to another program that CRA administer, and therefore they have more information. But instead of having or giving these information only to agents, if it was more available to the general public, then it would be a less waste of time for everyone. Instead of calling the CRA, waiting in line, and then to receive information that they could have had access before because it was not secured information or private information that would be relevant to their own specific file.
And then quickly on the call centers, obviously this is a very particular circumstances for the call center because everyone was sent home and all that. But there have been a series of reports over the years from the AG, from your office as well, about poor performance from those call centers, drop calls, people can't get through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's been a bucket of money that's also been poured into it to try to repair that problem. Years later, what's your assessment of the situation with call centers and just generally Canadians being able to get a hold of the CRA in a timely manner? Is there been any improvement, or is that still very much a problem?
Within the last year, I haven't been able to compare too much, but I've read the OAG report in 2017, and I've seen that most of the issues are still there because we do receive many complaints in regards to call centers, waiting in queue, waiting in line, being disconnected, waiting in line for 2 hours or 3 hours, and then being disconnected by accident. Of course, it's still not a good service, and so CRA needs to properly reflect on how they deliver this. But I have not done my own systemic examination of this. This is just a fact. So it might be something for us to check in more deeply or in depth, I should say, over the next few years. But something we've gathered is that a simple solution would be the callback feature. I've been told it's difficult. They do have some callback feature, as you pointed out. Some programs have. But why not try to have something more general so that people would stop wasting their time when calling CRA? When you have to call a CRA agent, you brace yourself and you hope for the best. And that shouldn't be that way.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, operator, do we have any further questions?
There are no further questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment.
Then I believe that will conclude today's press conference. Monsieur Boileau, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Merci. The conference has now ended. La conférence est maintenant terminée. Please disconnect.